Hello there, welcome to my YouTube channel Truth in Motion Studios. My name is Christina and I am here to share my thoughts on spiritual abuse with you, and today we're covering victim blaming. I want to start out with a little fairly light anecdote to set the stage. So when I was, I believe, 18 years old, I worked in an theme park, you know, with the rides and all that. And I worked there just seasonally for Halloween. It was my first paid acting job, so I was super excited to be there, loved it. But they had made that day some changes because apparently management had heard that some of the actors were slacking. And needless to say, I played a monster, and I would play different monsters, but I would always be with another a little bit older man. He was a really nice guy. We would hang around, and yes, we would be chatting, but we would also scare the crap out of people. So it was just really an awesome time. But so that night I came there and they said, you have to go by yourself. And so they gave me this different costume, and it came with a reiteration: do not take off your mask. Don't take off your mask. Okay, so I got it. I'm not gonna take off my mask. All right, so I was given that one night, because my regular costume was gone for whatever reason, this hideous pink tent, if you will. It was this long, just like if you put a bed sheet around you, and it was a black alien mask, and then basically just a pink hood. So there wasn't much to the costume at all, and it looked hideous. And I was not very happy about it, but I did what I was told. So I went out into the park, and somehow the hours passed, and then toward the end of the night, and it would end around midnight, I somehow tripped a little and hurt my ankle. So I sat down on a bench. Here I'm sitting in my hideous pink alien costume in this adventure park shortly to midnight, and 18 by myself, and this group of youth comes. They couldn't have been much younger than me because they were just kids. There was no adult supervision, so they were right around my age. But they were a group, so we were 5 or so boys, and I specifically remember that they were not men, they were boys, but around my age. And they started to assault me. They were saying things to me, and the height of it was that one punched me on the head. It was like the weirdest attack, not even in the face, of my alien face. It was this bonk on my head. And I think this is how I remember the situation ending. I removed myself, which is in a way already a very brilliant strategy. I saw to it that I removed myself from the abusive situation. Now, later, I would tell the story to people, and they would say, well, why didn't you take your mask off? If they had known that there was just a 18-year-old girl scared and hurt her ankle under that mask, they would have probably stopped, hopefully. But I was told, do not remove your mask by management. So the one power I think I had in that moment was to remove my mask. But I was clearly told to not do that. So if you will, people in power who were able to make the rules took my power, my one power, to take the mask away so that people could see me away. They took that power away because of their reasons, and it left me, an impressionable youth, in this situation where I could have, under all understandable circumstances, taken my mask off and said to the guys, what are you doing? What the heck? I'm just working here. But I didn't want to break the rules. And that is an expression of how, in a way, my mind has worked for years before that and for years after that. And victim blaming comes into the play because when we talk about spiritual abuse, and thankfully more people are beginning to talk about it, at least Not that they're taking any responsibility, the people that are in power, but they are at least acknowledging that there is such a thing out there. They like to come up with all these reasons why victims are not to be taken seriously. And you know, the other day it's months ago now, I have so much, sorry, I'm losing track of time. But so an interview I had recently was with a German, actually a Swiss therapist. And he started out right off the gate by saying that the worst that people that are hearing about spiritual abuse are doing is that they're telling the victim, you are only responding this way because you are a wounded person. Think about that. So someone's saying, okay, what you're doing to me right now is not right. And then the other person is saying, you only think it's not right because you've been hurt before. So you're sensitive or whatever. I've heard that too this year, actually, by people in a situation that I own my part. I came out a bit too strong with my theological opinions and tried to mend things, unfortunately, unsuccessfully. However, at the end of the day, if you say to a person, you're only reacting this way because you are still hurt, that is comparable like if you have broken your arm and it hasn't quite healed. So when someone touches it, then it's like, oh, it still hurts, it still hurts. Like we think of that logic. Or I got a tooth filling, I still can't chew properly. That you can say, yeah, I'm still hurt that way. That's why a regular normal thing like chewing gives me problems. Now, what a convenient thing to say. You're still hurt, so that's why I don't have to take what you're saying seriously. Now, what if I were telling you though that, yeah, in my background I've had a tooth filling, but you're giving me rocks to chew on and that hurts. Would you still say, oh, you're only saying that because you're hurt? You're still hurt, aren't you? So I don't have to take it seriously. It doesn't change the fact that I was given rocks to chew on. And I'm talking not anecdotally anymore. This is just a metaphor, if you will. So I feel like that's a lot what's happening in part of this awakening that not only spiritual abuse, racial injustice, as well as coming to the light, that we're telling people, you're only reacting that way because you're hurt. And we don't have to take you seriously. Again, that's so convenient. And honestly, in a way, I have the same urge inside of me. Not too long ago, a friend of me sent me this email and I was like, what the heck did I do? I had no intention to. She heard me say something in a fitness class and took it a certain way. And that's not how it was intended. But here's the thing. My first impulse would have been to say, what the heck, you know me better, I'm not trying to hurt you, you know? And then in spiritual abuse settings, you would add on that, God put me in this position, so I'm not going to be taking the blame here if that's not working in your frame of mind or whatever. That was my first impulse, to react that way. Like, I was even a little hurt. You should know me better. I'm not trying to harm you. I'm not trying to embarrass you or whatever. And that's not even like... So I did not respond that way because I'm a human. I have the opportunity to not follow every urge that I have. And so I thought about it and I wrote her something that I would have liked to hear when I was in situations where the roles were reversed. And so I said to her that I'm sorry that it came, not even that it came across that way, that I have said things the way that they were unclear and stated what I meant to say. And so from there on, we had a very good conversation and it was helpful both for her and for me too, learning more about how misunderstandable sometimes we are. And if we are not humble, we will hurt people. And then we will have to harden our hearts toward the suffering of the people that listen to us, even more, harden our hearts. And that's not good. I think if the Bible talks about grieving the Holy Spirit, that's one of the ways. If you don't care about the suffering that you cause anymore, if you find rational reasons why that's not it, they're wrong, it's their own fault, I think you're dangerous at that point. And I know that I have the same ability to be dangerous, so I want to remain humble. So that's the one thing that people tell the victims, it's your fault. You know, and another way that it played out was this whole thing, oh, what was she wearing? You know, and this is not so much in the spiritual abuse setting, but with sexual abuse. What was she wearing? Or what was she doing there by herself? Or she secretly wanted it too. So all that is just all deflection. It is adding to the insult. It is adding to the trauma of victims. So before next time you want to start saying, well, in a way it's her fault, right? I want you to remember that that is a human way to think. And it's fine, we are humans after all. So if I've learned anything in the past year, it's awesome to be human. I want to go down that path even more and become more fully human, because God says humans are very good. And Jesus became a human, and I believe God created the entire world out of himself. So here we have the Imago Dei, we have Christ inside of us wherever we look. And yeah, you're like, what is she talking about? Well, it's in the Bible. Read the beginning of John. For instance, there's other verses. Read the beginning of John if you have a problem with this statement. Also, so the deeply human aspect here is that we are so easily led astray by fear. And so the fear is, that could happen to me, whatever the thing is that victim is alleging, or it could happen to my children. And then the question is, what do I have to do that won't happen? And then we create a scenario in our minds. Oh, it's a karma. Well, they did this, hence they deserve that. If you think that way, that's fine. It's just not what Jesus taught. The Bible says the sun rises over the righteous and the unrighteous, and in the world we will have fear, but our hope is supposed to be in Him, not in the fact that we get what we deserve. Yes, we reap what we sow, but when Jesus talks about that tower that fell over and hit the people that were just bystanders, unsuspecting bystanders, or in the same paragraph he talks about the people were being killed by, I believe, Pilate, and he's making a very clear point that no one deserves any of it more than the other, right? So who deserves the bad thing more than the other? So we all don't deserve it, is what I'm saying at the end of the day. None of us deserve suffering. And we are not doing us or the victims or the perpetrators any favors by blaming the victims in the sense of they must have done something to deserve this, because it's unthinkable otherwise. And it's unthinkable because I'm so afraid that this could happen to me or people I love. So I have to tell myself the reasons why I don't have to worry about it. Let me get to my final point of victim blaming in the context of spiritual abuse. In my example, my anecdote, I'm telling you about that my power was taken away. Now, the management said, don't take off your masks. That was my one power, taking the mask off. And maybe then starting to scream, but there was a lot of music in that place, very loud, so I don't think that would have made a difference. That would have been my one step, taking my mask off. The management is people in charge, right? And we are taught to listen to the people in charge. And in the Christian sense, they like to say, do not touch God's anointed, because who knows what could happen. And you guys, I a couple weeks ago interviewed Professor Kristen Kobus-Dumay, a wonderful, approachable, humble lady from Michigan who also spent some time in Germany, on her book Jesus and John Wayne. And there she brings up exactly that reasoning again and again and again. That is what parishioners are being told. This is why we're not going to the police with the abuse. And it's not, I don't even want to say just spiritual abuse, because it's all awful. So when there's clear abuse that is illegal, it's against the law, and you should, because there's minors involved, you should, especially if it's your own children, go to the police and report it and have the people that are clearly lawless, they're not abiding the law that is very clear there to protect minors, that they're not allowed to do that, all in the name of God, all in the name of do not touch God's anointed. And that's an extreme example. We have very subtle, small experiences like that. And it could be something like in a situation where there's clear hierarchy. And let's face it, in the Christian world, and I'm not just talking about the evangelical world, the same is happening across, well, probably all religions, but certainly all denominations in Christianity. There is a hierarchy that is perceivable, and one person tells the other something, and then when the other person speaks up and says, that kind of doesn't feel right, or whatever the natural response is to, what the heck, are you saying this and that? That the response they're getting is so scary and intimidating that they learn from early on in their career within Christianity, being a disciple, that you do not question authority. Person in front of you is a prophet or an apostle or a leader or a whatever degree they have in the realm that you're moving in, and hence you don't dare anymore to say a word. And that is a way that we give away our power. That, you know, in those moments, a lot of people say, you guys can go now I've been around Katie Scourger more often, and she uses the F word pretty freely, so I'm not gonna say it though, I'm not ready yet. So you can all go play by yourselves. I'm gonna not be part of this. That's what a lot of people do, and that seems to be the healthy thing to do, to say, you guys, that's not this way, not with me, right? Okay, but in my cult experience, I didn't do that for years and years and years. I allowed them. Every time I stopped arguing their treatment of me or other people, every time I did that, I gave them just a little bit more of my power. And then that is a learned helplessness, where you can later say, why didn't you speak up? Well, this is where it gets hairy. I gave my power to speak up away, and I got hurt. I was not able to leave. I was told I go to hell if I leave. If I question the anointed, a lightning might strike me, or I might get cancer, or something other or awful, horrible is going to happen. So I believed that. I swallowed that. And in that sense, I'm a victim, but I gave my power away. But it was the system, the sick system, that demanded that of me. And when I said yes to it in the beginning, small stages, I agreed with the system. So that is why I can say that the perpetrators of spiritual abuse are likely part of an abusive system where they were hurt too. There's exceptions where I want to say we are talking just about psychopaths that found their niche to abuse and control people and grow their kingdom. But I think many times, if I think for instance of myself, when I would pass the same treatment on to other young people in the group or older people, or my fiance in America, I was in Germany at the time, via email or via telephone. I didn't do that because I wanted to rule the world or because I wanted to be important. I thought I had to act that way. God needed me to correct these people and read them the right act or whatever, and tell them all the ways that they were falling short. I thought I had to. But then more and more I realized that the way I'm using my power doesn't seem to help people. Looking honestly at the results, I would have to say, I would not want anyone to be a part of this group. We are victims of God. We're victims of a God that created a world where more than half of all the people that ever existed were born just to spend eternity in hell, and it is up to me to find the ones that he had predestined to not go to hell. Yeah. So I think believing that, swallowing that about God is already in itself difficult. And in a way, you give a lot of your power away that way, because it really kills your empathy, it kills your flexible thinking. Fundamentalism, I think, is fundamentally bad for a brain that wants to think more than in black and white. Nuanced, on the spectrum thinking, flexible thinking, or as Richard Rohr calls it, contemplative prayer, contemplative living or thinking, considers both options and says, what else? And what else is going on? So, when people end up saying, well, they should have told me that what I said to them was abusive, or how I treated them, or what I demanded of them, or what sin I pointed out in their life, that was abusive, I think they don't understand the dynamic that someone with my past, for instance, perceives. That it's very clear you do not question authority, and often it is that exact person who has taught you that you are not supposed to question their authority. They come back at you with such a strong that you know, I guess I'm not going to say anything. And then in the inside, because you're a good person and you want to be a good person, you tell yourself, God must be really concerned about my well-being or my soul, and God has to talk to me that way so that he can get through to me. So we're rationalizing the abuse. We are enduring rather than calling a spade a spade. And when it smells like a skunk, and it looks like a skunk, and it sounds like a skunk, it probably is a skunk. My final thoughts for today are, number one, if people give you a hard time because they react strongly, and you're kind of new in a relationship and that's happening, or it's been going on like that forever and you kind of gotten used to it, point it out. Mirror it back to the person. Let them know. So here's what I'm perceiving. I am perceiving that I am asking a question which is important to me, or I'm questioning what you just said to me, and you explode in my face. Is that it? And then see what happens. So that is your power. Dare to take your power back. That whole anointed, don't touch him stuff. Well, has anyone ever looked at the actual story? It's about David having the chance to kill Saul, literally, and because he's David, and in that moment he doesn't feel like killing a bunch of people, he says, I'm not going to touch God's anointed. Okay? So if you are now taking that to mean we're supposed to not kill people spiritually, then I think you're giving the story a new context, and you are also not working in truth. And I like to say that truth is the only weapon that we have. And I don't even like to call it a weapon, let me call it a scalpel. That's the only way of healing the world that we have, given by our Creator, who is truth and grace. That's it. That's who he is. Love, truth, grace. And if we can't handle truth, then we are not free. That's just it. We are not free. So that was the one final thought. And the other final thought, oh my, this has gotten long, is that learn about the drama triangle. Katie Scourger teaches it. And over the past 3 months, we've had this online support group. It was very cool. We wrapped it up now, and yeah, it was awesome. So the drama triangle talks of that basically the way of the world is there's a persecutor, that's perceived, there's a rescuer, that's perceived, and there's a victim, that's perceived. And we fall into that pattern very quickly. So abusers are considered the persecutors. So oneself is considered the victim. And then someone has to rise up to the occasion and rescue everybody. And what the rescuer often doesn't realize is that they in turn become the new persecutor, and the victim becomes also more of a perpetrator, which is, we talked about that, Katie Scourger, in that interview with Katie Scourger, that it's very well portrayed in the last of the Hunger Game movies, where the new elected leader, this blonde lady, Julianne Moore's character, I believe, wants to, now that the Hunger Games are over, send all their captivated, so the prisoners of the district. If you've never watched the movie, what I'm trying to say is, if we pay back the same pain to the people that have hurt us, nothing will change, ever, ever. Nothing is learned, no hearts are changed, and I think we're not moving in the grain of life, in the grain of grace, truth, God ordained physical laws, if you will, scientifically proven, if you will. Yeah. So that drama triangle, and recognize your default position, because I used to think of myself as the victim, like, I have no power. I have no power. I can't do anything. I just have to receive it. I have to make sense of the situation, or I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna kill myself, actually, because I can't do anything else. So I'm not in that frame of mind anymore. I have left the drama of the world, if you will, behind, I hope, and am open to realizing more ways that I still might be functioning in that world, because the kingdom of God is not that. There's no persecutor, there's no rescuer, there's no victim. There is God, Father, Son, and Spirit, and then there's creation that he dearly, dearly loves, and put himself into every human, everywhere. Everything is created from God. We're caretakers. We're shepherds of creation and each other. So victim blaming is so awful and will not help the situation at all, though it does reveal the heart of the leader that is doing that. Okay, that's all I have to say to you today, and it only took me 28 minutes to say. Have a wonderful rest of October. We're all in this together, and I will see you soon. Bye.